Hey. All right, today I want to talk to you about online quizzes because this is one of the most common ways that I see coaches and other entrepreneurs be able to have a lead generation strategy and get those people from a forum and onto your email list. And I'm being asked all the time, okay, what is the best forum application to be able to do this? And there are plenty out there, right? A lot of people just make forums on basic forums like Typeform or Google Forms or things like that, and then other folks will use things like ScoreApp or Involve.me. But there are some nuances, right? So typically when you're sticking with Typeform or Google Forms, you're getting a little less functionality for a better price. And then when you're moving to like Involve.me or ScoreApp, you're usually getting some more robust functionality, but it requires you to pay. And so today I want to show you how you can have the best of both worlds using Fillout Forms. And I do need to credit a good friend and fellow coach, Mary, for asking me about this and then actually chatting with the Fillout team. Fillout Forms is what we're going to be using to do this, to figure out how to actually get her particular use case done. And I thought it would be so useful for all of you that I wanted to share it. And so essentially what we're going to take a look at here is Fillout Forms. And I have one of their templates open, which I will share in the description. This is the one they sent over to Mary. And so essentially what this form does is it helps anyone who takes it find the right social media marketing tool based on goals and preferences, which somebody would have to fill out in the answers. So if I just page through the form here and click Let's Get Started, you can see that I could answer a bunch of different questions here. They can be all kinds of forms. And then essentially when I get to the end, which I'll just skip ahead, right? There's some magic that happens in the background and it says, okay, based on your answers, we've identified the tool and let me know what it is. And then boom, this time it recommended Hootsuite. It might recommend some others. So what I want to do is take you behind the scenes and show you exactly how this works. And to reiterate here, this particular quiz workflow is going to be useful to you if you have that same kind of structure, to where you have multiple outcomes and maybe your questions are a little bit different and you need to make sure that if they answered, this 2-option question and this 4-option question this way and this one this way, that calculates the score. So think of it as like A, B, C, and D, like these 4 buckets that somebody can be sorted in, or maybe it's A, B, and C, or maybe A, B, you get to decide. We need to do some calculation in the background to determine, did choice A have the most answers, or was it choice B, or C, or D? And so what we do to do this is to go into this logic section. So I recommend, starting with this template, or you can certainly do it from scratch. And they have logic set up for the buffer outcome, the Hootsuite outcome, and the Sprout Social outcome. And if we go into here, we can see a whole bunch of like conditional logic rules. Now don't let this overwhelm you. It's actually very simple. And all it says is we name the calculation, so this one's buffer, and what it says is we need to calculate a score for buffer by doing the following. So if we go here and scroll down, each of these conditions is for each of the questions on the form. So whether it's the buffer option, the Hootsuite option, or the Sprout Social option, again, the A, B, or C, each of them are going to have the same number of conditions that equate to each question on the form. And so if we look at this one, we can see this is the who is your target audience. If it equals both, then we are going to add 1, right? If it just was equaling B to C or B to B and not both, this calculation wouldn't be true. So 1 would not be added. And so all this does is it says, okay, it goes down to the next question, which social media platforms are you interested? If they have any of Twitter or YouTube, add 1. Again, going down, the what is your content strategy? And if you've chosen both, we're going to add a 1, right? So these are all of the buffer related questions, and it gives a calculation. So if I go back to calculations, I can see the same thing with Hootsuite, right? So if I go in here, who is your target audience? Remember, buffer had both, but Hootsuite says B to C, right? So if they select B to C, we're going to add 1, right? So this is essentially what you would do to add all of these calculations together to get an overall score for Hootsuite. Now that we have a way to calculate an overall score for Buffer, Hootsuite, and Sprout Social, we need to make sure that we're sending people to the right place at the end of their quiz. And so each of these pages are just simply for a question in the form. That's how this form is laid out. It has one question per page. But then when we get to the end here, we see something interesting. And you see you have the ability to add these conditional branches. And so, for example, if we edit this condition that's currently linking to Sprout Social, it says if the Sprout Social calculation, this is how you get to these calculations. So if the Sprout Social calculation is greater than the Hootsuite calculation, right? If there were more Sprout Suite selected answers than Hootsuite, and there were more Sprout Social selected answers than Buffer, then we're going to show the ending page that recommends Sprout Social. Same thing here. If the Buffer calculation had more answers, or was a larger number than the Hootsuite calculation, and it was a larger number than the Sprout Social calculation, then it is going to output the Buffer page. And if none of those things are true, then it's going to default to Hootsuite. And so that is the very simple way of setting this up. If you have any questions or you'd like me to expand on this further, please let me know in the comments and I would be happy to help you out. All right, I'll talk to you soon.